Welcome everybody to March 11, 2019. And if you will, stand, pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now we'll have Deacon Levon Lindsay come up and give us our invocation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you. On behalf of all who are gathered here tonight, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health that we need to fulfill our callings, for subsistence and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to refuse you. Thank you for loving us even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authority, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, in particular for the disassembled council. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and the issues of our times, a sense of welfare and true needs for our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony, even where there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would be pleasing to you and what would benefit those who live and work around our beloved city of Black Mountain. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Okay, guys, one thing I want to bring up is about being quiet in the meeting. This is a small room, and we've had complaints in the last 2 weeks about people talking. And whether you realize it or not, if you're in the back row and you're talking, you're disturbing people 2 or 3 rows in front of you. So I'm just giving you fair warning. Everybody, let's be respectful of your neighbors. Proclamations and awards. Proclamation Litter Sweep 2019. Whereas the North Carolina Department of Transportation organizes an annual spring roadside cleanup to ensure and clean and beautiful roads in North Carolina, and whereas the spring of 2019 Litter Sweep roadside cleanup will take place on April 6, 2019, whereas Adopt the Highway volunteers, Department of Transportation employees, Department of Correction inmates, and community service workers, local government agencies, community leaders, civic and community organizations, businesses, churches, schools, and environmentally concerned citizens conduct annual local cleanups during Litter Sweep. And whereas this year, Black Mountain will observe the annual cleanup on Saturday, April 6, 2019. Now, I therefore, Don Collins, Mayor of Black Mountain, do hereby proclaim April 6, 2019 as spring litter sweep time in our town and encourage all citizens to take an active role in making our community cleaner and more beautiful. Signed the 11th day of March 2019. Then I have another proclamation, and if I can have the Martin step up here. I want to tell you something about these folks. I know them well. I know their mothers and dads. I know the grandparents. I know what kind of outstanding human beings that they are and public servants that they are. And this is Heather B. Martin, McDowell County High School Teacher of the Year 2019. She won that recognition, and so whereas Heather B. Martin has been teaching Spanish courses in McDowell High School for the past 6 years, and whereas Heather is not only a language teacher respected by both the school community and peers alike, she has been recognized as McDowell County's High School 2019 Teacher of the Year, whereas Heather has spent endless hours in and out of the classroom teaching students and empowering them to think freely, and has helped her students develop language skills that will benefit them throughout their lives. And whereas Heather has engaged her students by producing innovative lessons that have real-life applications and thus promoted learning to her students as a lifelong endeavor. Whereas Heather is a lifelong Black Mountain resident, graduated from Owen High School in 2019, Appalachian State University in 2013, and is married to firefighter Travis Martin. Whereas Heather was named Homecoming Queen and voted the most friendly student in Owen High School in 2019, carrying forth her positive outlook and caring demeanor into her work and community today. Now, therefore, I, Don Collins, Mayor of the town of Black Mountain, and the Board of Aldermen, do hereby proclaim March 11, 2019, the town of Black Mountain as Heather Martin Day. All righty. Citizen comments. Do we have a? Yep. Elaine is the first one. Elaine Lotzenheimer. If you will, keep your comments 3 minutes and give us your address.
It won't take me that long.
Okay.
Elaine Lotzenheiser, 410 Avena Road, Black Mountain. I just have one request. You've got a budget meeting coming up soon, and I understand that right now Paget Town Road is not on it as far as repairs. I'd like to invite every one of you to drive up Paget Town Road to at least the first turn and imagine meeting a school bus or a garbage truck as you drive up that road. There's a development being planned beyond the first turn, and I don't think you should allow any more development on that accesses that road until that road is repaired. I've lived on it 30 years, or at least driving on it 30 years to get to my house. Nothing's been done to it. The shoulders are crumbling, and it needs repairing. I please want you to consider whether you get POW bill money for it or not. You've got enough money in your savings account that you can pay to repair that road. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Miss Susan Levy.
My husband is handing out a little map of my neighborhood of Black Mountain. I am Susan Livey. I live at 119 Louisa Street. I come to you tonight to make you aware of my concerns and concerns of other people in our community about short-term rentals, like Airbnb, VRBOs, and etc. in our residential neighborhoods. We don't know yet the exact number of STRs in Black Mountain in our town. However, if I look at some of the web-based sites, we can see there are many. We do have visitors and we enjoy our visitors. To give you on a personal level my concern, what you're looking at is a map of Louisa Street, which is right behind not the elementary school, but the primary school. It's a very short dead-end street. On that street, we have 3 short-term rentals, 2 long-term rentals, and 9 owner-occupied. One of the possible short-term rentals is a new home being built that is 6,100 heated square feet. It will have the potential of 6 to 8 bedrooms. We have been told that it will probably be an Airbnb. We have concerns with the safety in our neighborhood. Coates Cannons reports that there are 4 things about regulating STRs: safety for our renters, occupancy tax revenue, equity between short-term rentals, B&Bs, and hotels, and also the need to preserve our neighborhood character. I moved to Black Mountain for the character. I want to enjoy the visitors, but I like to also have neighbors where we take care of one another and that we have that neighborly feel. So I ask that you respectfully task the planning department, or the planning board, to please take a look at this issue and see what impact it might have on our community and what we might do about it. Thank you.
Miss Lisa Milton. All right, so it'll be a new business. Okay. Communications from commissions and agency boards. The first up is Miss Libba Fairley.
Thank you for inviting me here and the Black Mountain Beautification Committee to give our annual report. The Beautification Committee has been serving the Black Mountain community for 19 years. Our mission statement says what we do. The people of Black Mountain possess a cherished tradition of honoring the natural beauty of the surrounding mountains, all the while seeking to reflect that beauty on the streets and in the lives of its citizens. As our committee walks around town and working in garden sites or tending to plant containers, we often receive praise. And visitors say how wonderful the town looks. We're asked, how do you get this done? Well, it is not just the work of one committee, I assure you. It is all of you. It is Public Works. It's all of us in this community that make it happen. We have a growing membership of over 60 members. We often say that we're the welcome committee for new residents in town because it's a perfect way to get to know new members, new people in town. Our members attend monthly board meetings. They maintain garden sites. They fulfill other roles such as officers. They work on other projects. Our members are the backbone of the Beautification Committee, and without them, our ideas could never take root. I want to share with you some of the accomplishments of this past fiscal year. This is our new garden signage. We take great pride in maintaining the 20 public sites in the historic district. One or more of our members are assigned to plant, to weed, mulch, and water the beds. Each site has a custom-made sign saying who we are, and we are proud of who we are. 12 members of our committee are dedicated to maintaining the garden beds at Town Square by planting, weeding, and mulching. In addition, we ask all of our committee members to come spread the mulch party in spring. It's a great party. You don't want to miss it. To weed extra in June so that we have a weed-free July 4th, and to help in fall with the general cleanup. Twice a year, we redesign the gardens in the 42 plant containers in downtown Black Mountain. Members of the committee weekly take care of the containers, ensuring that downtown is always blooming for residents and visitors alike. Now, you might wonder what that is and what that has to do with the containers. Well, with the help of Jamie Matthews and the wonderful folks at Public Works, they created this device that waters all of our plants. Now, we haven't had to do it lately because we know we've just had rain and more rain. But Jamie and his crew created this. This past fall, we partnered with the horticulture class from Swannanoa Correctional Center for Women. Several women from the program were honored to be selected to design and to plant 2 of the containers. These containers are by the Drippolator and by Trailhead Restaurant. Now you may notice we have a little extra gardening help. We think we have a little ghost that comes by every now and then. Have you seen our monthly column in the Black Mountain News? We have knowledgeable gardening writers who educate and encourage others to garden. Our articles get additional coverage in the Asheville Citizen Time and on other websites. Speaking of websites, our web address is www.blackmountainbeautification.org. So in addition to that article, you can look up our website and find just about anything you'd want to know about growing and how you can be a part of us. We also have a Facebook page that publicizes all of our upcoming events and what's new in town. So if you haven't already liked us on Facebook, go. In August, we finalized our grant requirements with the Appalachian Regional Commission. I know Angela was happy about that. We enjoyed partnering and working with you on this grant. Now with the installation of 42 plant containers, personalized town benches, and a watering cart, as we've already seen, our vision is realized in the historic district. Have you been on Cherry Street? Surely you've been there since September, and you might have noticed the wonderful art. 2 of our members revamped the Cherry Street public restrooms and garden site. Pat Ward gave a fresh coat of paint to the exterior wood of the building, and Joyce Blackworks used that wood as a canvas to paint this amazing mural of our beautiful mountains. They generously donated their time and talent to give this gift to the town. On 2 Saturdays a month, and we are glad for the resolution about Litter Sweep, the Beautification Committee partners with DOT, with Kiwanis, with many other organizations, and we clean up town. And you will see lots of those orange bags all over town on Saturday afternoon, April 6th. It's fun. Come join us. So most people think it's fall when the leaves change colors, but we don't think it's fall until we see Rocky and Rockette, the fun crows, and the spider who make an appearance at Town Square. These fall figures are created by our talented committee members, and we partner also with the children and the teachers at the Black Mountain Primary School. These are displayed at garden sites, town squares, and welcome areas, just to let our visitors know that we're a fun town. Before Holly Jolly Weekend starts, we deck the garden sites, town square, town hall, and the welcome areas with greenery, roping, and bows to make the spirit of the holiday come alive in Black Mountain. We rounded out this year by joining local businesses and organizations that deck the trees. This was our first year designing, creating ornaments, and decorating a tree for this special event. As you might all know, all the money from Deck the Trees goes to the Fuel Fund for Swannanoa Valley Christian Ministry. I'm proud to say that the Beautification Committee was in the top 5 money raisers for Deck the Trees, and just as an aside, we raised almost $30,000 this year at Deck the Trees. The Seed Money, annually we sponsor a Seed Money Award, which is granted to people and organizations that want to help enhance the beauty of Black Mountain. Applications are still being received, and the winners will be announced this month. The money for this program comes through the funds that we get through the Black Mountain Garden Show and Sale. We are so fortunate to have members who want to make this town a better place, who are inspired by these projects, and who make it happen. All of these take time, energy, and financial support. So our time at work cannot be measured by just hands in the soil alone. We all know that beauty doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of planning. So Angela said to give an hourly count to what we do. It's hard to do that, but when we look at all that we do, all of our members, we average at least 4,500 hours a year working to make Black Mountain beautiful. If you give us a minimum wage, you're spending $32,625. If we were to get $10 an hour, that's $45,000. We save you that amount of money, and you're not having to pay us vacation or health insurance. We save you money, and you generously give us money so that we can do the things we love, playing in the dirt and making things beautiful. We thank you for this financial support, and we hope that we've been good stewards of your trust. But not all the work that we do can be funded through what you give us. So I'd like to just mention a few things that we do to help raise funds. This is Town Square in 2013. Fast forward to 2018. One of the things that we do is to work at Town Square, but we are also gifted with an amazing artist in our group, and that's Joyce Blackworks. Now, these have all dropped, but this past year, Joyce painted 4 murals of Town Square in winter, spring, summer, and fall. And these are just these are our cards. We sell these cards, and we would sell any to any of you here, and that money goes right back into helping to do the work. We also have prints available for sale. Our holiday greenery sale helps to pay for all, or does pay for all of the greenery that we put up around town. The big news this year with the garden show is it's a 2-day event. This year the garden show will begin Friday, April the 17th at 4 o'clock. There will be a welcome party, and then Saturday, May 18th, it will be the regular 9 to 4. Now, we raise funds through the applications for the vendors. We raise funds through our clothesline sale, and this year we'll be having a raffle. For each vendor will be donating a plant. I want to say just one thing about the clothesline sale. Get there early on Saturday morning, because these sell out fast. Larry Harris frequently buys the flower arrangement. I think he's there at 8:45 and stands in line. But there's weeding in people's gardens. There's food that's cooked. We have a lot of activities, and this helps to fund us. Lastly, one way that we raise funds is by being a member of the Black Mountain Parks and Greenways Foundation. We are grateful that we can do that, and we can accept donations. Wow, look what we could do with that one. So, what are our goals for the coming year? On our to-do list is to continue all of the projects that we've already mentioned. We'll be working with the VFW this year. They ask us to help them highlight their work when they do their parade. We will continue with Swannanoa Valley Christian Ministry, Urban Forestry, and other organizations in town. This coming year in 2020, we will be celebrating our 20th anniversary as a committee. So we're working on plans, and we're calling it 2020. Pretty original. We always say that our committee works well with others, and we could not do it without all of you. Thank you, Mayor Collins. Without you, we would not have a scarecrow at Town Square. And not only that, but you have supported us through all of our years. We thank you, Vice Mayor Maggie Tuttle. We thank you to all the Board of Aldermen for your support. We thank you to the employees of Black Mountain. Josh, we're glad that you were with us. Angela, we couldn't do without you. Nor could we do without Jamie and all of his crew. So thank you very much. And then we have a group of other folks that we want to thank, and I'm not going to go through all of them. If we've left anybody out, we sincerely apologize, but we do appreciate all the people that we work with in town. We've received recognition for our work in many forms, being thanked and recognized at the commission breakfast one year, letters and emails from local residents, thanks from community business leaders and visitors. And this year we got a different kind of thank. The Laurel of Asheville recognized us, and they recognized the mural that Joyce Blackworks painted. And it was especially striking to see Black Mountain in the center of the Laurel of Asheville, and we've got a copy for you so that you might have that. Our devotion to bringing beauty into our public areas gives us joy, and it's what makes this community special. In this day and age, the inclusiveness of our community is a gift to each of us, and that's why we all call Black Mountain home, and we want to thank you for your continued support of us. Thank you.
Miss Libby, I want to thank everybody from the Beautification Committee for what all they do. It's one of the reasons that the work that y'all have done is the reason that we were voted the prettiest small town in the United States in 2017, and it's not by chance. It was because of the work that you guys do, and we appreciate it, and we get more bang for the buck with you guys than we do anywhere else, and I'm terribly proud of you. Thank you.
Very much. You know what? You get this. These cards.
All right, thank you.
We've got more of that.
All righty. Public Works Annual Water Report, Jamie Matthews.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. This is our annual water projects for Public Works that happens through the year, and done some stuff a little different. I wanted to put some highlights of where money's budgeted and where tax dollars is being spent in our water system. And so this is where it's at. So I'll just start off. Last year, if you noticed, and you was downtown, any of you seen where we replaced a lot of taps downtown on Cherry Street. And that's sort of the oldest part of our water systems downtown. And when we done State Street several years ago, we found that we had a lot of lead taps in the system, which we definitely want to get out. Good news is we found none on Cherry Street, but we did replace some leaks here and there and upgrade every bit of that, because if you remember, MSD was coming through doing a sewer refurbishment, and it was a good time to jump on board and get that replaced. So with the money that was budgeted and the board approved, that's one of the projects we done. Also, we replaced a 2-inch water line on South Ridgeway, which was an old galvanized line that we just kept going into and replacing. And that's a good thing about our SCADA. We can document this information, and it'll tell us from year to year which lines is causing us trouble, costing us money that we can replace and move forward. So that line was replaced, about 400 foot of that line was replaced with PVC. So in my lifetime, it should be good. We replaced and extended. We had the engineering. Anytime you got to do an extension or an upgrade to a water line in size, you have to have it engineered. So we engineered. We extended a 2-inch water line on Taft Street. That done a couple of things. It got rid of an old galvanized line, and also put a spur and extended off that 2-inch line for 2 lots that was going to be built on that had no water. So we got water out there. We get the revenue off of that. We replaced well pumps 4 and 18, and I want to touch on that a little bit when we get to the end of this report. I'm excited and got some good news about the water system that we've been working toward, and we're getting results, so I want to share that. But that being said, in the past few years, we've replaced 4, 18, 19, 5, and 1, which the board has approved and we've budgeted for, and I want you to see the results of that. Further into it, like I said, I want to give just a couple of 19 highlights. The generators and booster stations, I want to touch on that a little bit. That was approved in this budget. Those are installed. I'm waiting on some quotes from Blossman Gas to get on a field program. But what that's going to do for your water system, this year we've lost power twice. Since I've been here in over a decade, we've lost power a lot through some storms we've had. having the good connections that we do and the people we know that's working for power companies and things of that nature, like Richard Paget that I'm sure y'all know, they really work to get us back in power, and I'm very appreciative of that. But they won't always be there, and we always want to keep the connections. So by installing these generators, if we lose power, you're not going to lose water. 2,000-gallon tanks, 3 places in town. We done Hempfield, Chapel Road, and the Old Toll Road pump stations. That's 2 of the big stations, and they're 1,000-gallon tanks. So if you lose power, we could run full all out on these generators around the clock, probably 72 to 96 hours. It's yet to be seen, but that's what they say. But here's the good news about it. We can manually control them. So we can come in and cut the generators on, run the pumps, fill the tanks when we want to, which in turn is going to give us several weeks. We can take it further and we can budget going forward, add it on the SCADA system. I can control it home from my phone. I won't even have to come up here. So, hint, hint. That might be coming down the road. So anyway, Montreat Road valves. Since I've been here, we've had leaks around Montreat Road, certain sections of that line. We've not been able to kill that line, and if you've ever been to water utility and you're fighting water at 2 o'clock in the morning on a lot of water with a lot of pressure, the only thing you can do to help you is try to go around town and open, kill what valves you can, open what fire hydrants you can to get some of that water off of you. But in turn, you're losing a lot of water that you're going to have to replace, and you're putting a big section of town out of water. So I'm glad to say, as of last week, those 5 valves that was budgeted for is in place and operable today. So that's done. Got a couple of areas I'd like to work on moving forward with some more valves in some areas like that. But that was one of my goals that I wanted to get done, and that was done last week. So very tickled with that. Our total work orders for this past year, you can see they're pretty even. You had a real big drop in the middle last year. The one on the end for 18 would be more consistent with this year, but if you look at the next slide and you look at the recheck for meters, we had some, if you was on the water system, you got some billing, we had some trouble with some meter reading. That would make up for that difference, but that problem has been corrected, and we're back on track now. So if that's a breakdown of where the work orders, those 3,000 work orders go, 1,536 line locates, that's us locating, that's other utility companies coming in asking for locates. That just shows that there's a lot going on in this town right now. You can tell that by the 440 cut-ons. That's for new service, by the way. So that's 440 new services for water this past year. Here's what I wanted to get to. Every year I try to throw this up here of how much water is being purchased from Asheville and how much is pumped. If you look at these numbers, you'll see that it significantly went down this year, 52 million versus 65 last year and 68 the year before. That's making progress, and I want to talk about that for just a minute. If you back up to this chart and you look where there's 79 water leaks fixed last year, okay? Now if you back up to right here and you look at those well replacements, and then if you take it further, those 440 new customers are on a brand new meter. New meters are more efficient than old meters. That's why we replace them every so many years, because it actually is not a benefit to us, because as time goes on, they're more beneficial to the customer because they're not reading correctly. So now I'll get back to where we was at on that. SCADA. This is something that I've always been proud of, and I want to prove the results. This sheet right here is a print off from SCADA, which in turn was some of the flow meters that was budgeted that we put in that comes out of our watershed. They're very accurate. So when we replaced well 4 last month in February, I can show you in detail on this chart. We was pumping 422,000 gallons of water a day. We replaced that one pump, put it back online February the 27th. Half a day went to 456. A full 24-hour day, 497,000 gallons of water. That's a 75,000 gallon a day increase in water, plus 79 leaks fixed. Water lines replaced that was losing water. That's why the gallons pumped from Asheville is going down. So I'm very proud of that, and we're always looking for ways to improve our water system, and we will continue. And so hopefully we'll get the quotes back, get the generators online. If we lose power moving forward, we won't lose water. So I just wanted to touch the highlights, show a little bit about what was being spent and what we're doing, and so it's a good thing. But that's my report. So if you got any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, Josh, consent agenda.
Jerry Bryson.
Do what?
Jerry Bryson.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. Jerry Bryson, pickleball. I guess we have.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Board, for the opportunity to be here and shed a little light and share a little information with you about the Black Mountain Pickleball Club. It's happened twice today, and it happens very frequently. Folks ask me, what do you do for fun and what do you do for exercise? And I say, I play pickleball. And they say, well, what in the world is pickleball? Well, pickleball is not new. It's been around since the 1960s, but it has taken off and is the fastest growing sport in the United States. What I would like to do is introduce you to pickleball, the Black Mountain Pickleball Club, and then following that, this is only 90 seconds. Following that, you will see the Black Mountain Pickleball Club in action playing while I'm making a presentation. So. I hope that the pickleballers playing won't be a distraction to you. Pickleball started at the Carver Center a number of years ago with a single court, 4 to 6 players, and it's grown significantly. As I said, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. There are over 4 million players that belong to the United States Pickleball Association. There are over 5,000 pickleball courts that the United States Pickleball Association knows of. Okay? This number has doubled since 2010. There are 76 new pickleball courts that the United States Pickleball Association knows of, opening each month, with 10% increase in players every year. Just most recently, Fairview opened up
2 new pickleball courts. Shiloh area has 3 indoor pickleball courts. Marion has pickleball courts. So it is fastest growing sport in the United States, and it's the fastest growing sport in Black Mountain. Pickleball in Black Mountain is attractive because it's a great way to get your aerobic exercise in and your movement in. It is not uncommon for me to get, according to my Fitbit, 10,000 steps every time that I go out and play pickleball. So pickleball is, as far as the body is concerned, it's the easiest sport on your body. It is growing in its popularity in part due to that. As far as paddleball sports or racket sports go, pickleball is easier on the body. Okay? And that's part of what makes it attractive. Pickleball, in terms of how it's played like ping pong. It's played like tennis. The court is 20 feet wide by 44 feet long. The net is comparable to a tennis net. I think a tennis net is about 2 inches higher. The score is very similar to tennis and ping pong, as you see some of the players exhibiting their skills. One of the things that's most attractive about the Black Mountain Pickleball Club, feedback that we get most often from folks who visit with us, is that our pickleball club is a recreational club. That doesn't mean that we don't like to win, but it means that we like to have an interest in each other. We like for each person who comes on board to advance their play. We have an opportunity for beginners to play with intermediates, to play with advanced. So within the pickleball club that we have, it has grown into a community. We care about each other. There's healthy competition, building of relationships. Yeah, there's instruction to improve your skill level, but there's real support for each other, real care for each other. There's camaraderie, and there's mutual respect. You will not find many sports where your competitors will congratulate you on a good shot. But in pickleball, you will find that very much to be true with the Black Mountain Pickleball Club. We like each other, we support each other, and we know that beginners playing with more advanced players will learn quicker, will be more enthusiastic. This is a difference between our pickleball club and the clubs that are super competitive, rank players, and you can only play within your ranks. To speak about the growth, it's really interesting that this past summer we played outdoors at the Black Mountain Middle School. We had over 500 participants. We averaged 17 players during the warm weather months. We were playing outside using the tennis courts. It was labor intensive. The courts had to be lined with chalk before every pickleball day games could be played. So there was a lot of work that was going on that was involved. I want to thank the Parks and Recreation because they paid for us to be able to use the Black Mountain Middle School. We do take a $2 donation, and from that donation, we're able to buy our supplies. We were able to rent a porta-john and put it at the middle school, and I'm really thankful for that that we made. To give you another example of our growth, if you look at January of 2018, we had 8 days of play, playing 2 days a week, and we averaged 13 players. This January of 2019, we averaged 13 days of play, and our numbers had increased to 21 players per day. We've been able to increase our play, and we've had to increase it based on demand, from 2 days a week to now 3 days a week. It's not uncommon for us to have 25 pickleballers come to play. We have had as many as 30 participants come to play. The maximum number of courts that we have, either at the middle school or Craigmont, where we play in the winter months, that's what you're seeing on the screen here, is 3 courts. So we have 3 courts with a maximum then of 12 players to accommodate as many as 30 people. We are bursting at the seams. We have more and more people that are expressing interest in pickleball. We started a beginner's class, as we do quite frequently, and I want to thank Suzanne Money, Fran Thigpen, Carolyn Johnson. They help out most with the beginner's class. It's a 6-week class for the beginners. Well, when we have the beginner's class, they take up one of the 3 courts that we have available. Now that's a good thing to have. Okay? This past Wednesday was the first Wednesday in a new beginner's class, and we had, I believe, 13 new players. So as you can see, with 3 courts available to us, it really affects our ability to have good play, adequate play, and give players adequate time. One of the things, if we have a criticism from newcomers or people visiting Black Mountain, because pickleballers travel and they take their pickleball stuff with them, is the time that you have to wait when you're sitting, waiting to play a game, because the court space just isn't there. So we've tried to accommodate that by lowering the scores of the game so that your games don't last as long. But people get really discouraged if they're having to wait 15 minutes to play a pickleball game, and it's hard to know how long the game is going to last. So there's some discouragement that's been expressed, and so we're in great need of adequate playing area. We currently, if we continue to have 13 beginners, that could possibly take 2 courts. And as you can see, the numbers just don't add up. We do welcome the growth. We're happy to have new players. But we want to ask the board to consider, as you think about things going forward, that we have a dedicated pickleball area. We're grateful to Cragmont that we're able to play there in the winter months. That's what you've seen on the screen. Those courts are lined, so we don't have to line the courts each time before we play. But we do have to take the equipment up each time, put it down each time. We do continue to take a $2 donation, and that goes to Cragmont for the use of the facility to pay the utilities and things there. So whether or not that's a long-term opportunity and proposition for us, we don't know. They've been very gracious to us, but we don't know if that's going to be long-term. Would like to mention to you that pickleballers are travelers. You may not think that pickleball would be a deciding factor for someone to come to the town of Black Mountain. But I can tell you that all things being equal, pickleball can make a difference. We have had, just since we've been playing at Cragmont during the cold weather months, we have had 5 people who were visiting Black Mountain and came to play pickleball with us. And they extended their visits to Black Mountain. They liked our club so much and the way that we play. They extended their vacation time by a week just so they could continue playing pickleball with us. So it does have an effect on folks visiting in our town. If we had a wish list, and we do, our ideal, dream would be to have a nice indoor pickleball facility, as a lot of places do. But at least having a dedicated area to play that's adequate for us to continue this sport and to continue to offer it at the rate that it's going. Having a dedicated pickleball area with enough courts to play is something that we ask the board to consider as you move forward. We would also ask you to consider to have maybe a greater presence and maybe a direct link to pickleball on the website so that we can have more information, up-to-date information, so that folks that are coming into the community and folks that live here want to know when we're playing, when we're changing from one area to the other, whether we're playing at middle school or Cragmont. Just a lot of information that we want to be able to give. Okay. Again, thanks to the board for the support. Thanks to the Park and Rec Department for what you do for us. But the bottom line is, as far as I know, other than paying a fee, if you will, for us to play at the Black Mountain Middle School, the pickleball club is totally self-supporting. We buy all of our equipment. We buy all of the pickleballs and the nets. We provide all the equipment for the newcomers. We take the donations and we pay Craigmont for the use of that facility. So we're not asking, for money in that regard, but just for you to consider that we're making an investment in the sport that we love. And we ask that you would make an investment by considering to provide Pickleball Club of Black Mountain with a more adequate facility in place to play. Lastly, I would like to have the pickleballers that are here to at least stand up and be recognized. We have a few. And you can see that we do have official Black Mountain pickleball shirts that we're very proud of. Okay. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, Josh, consent agenda.
So item A on your consent agenda will be adoption of minutes from February 2nd, 2019 special called meeting, February 7th, 2019 agenda session, February 7th, 2019 closed session, February 11th, 2019 regular session, and February 21st, 2019 special called meeting. Item B will be a budget amendment for Flat Creek Greenway repairs. And we've talked about this before, but this is allocating some funds to repair that 120-foot linear section of Greenway that was damaged during the storms last year, to get that going, and hopefully start paving here in April when the asphalt plant opens. That's $20,835. Item C, a budget amendment for Human Resources Attorney Services provided by Robertson Stevens. This is for $14,000. We've been using this firm mainly for redoing our personnel policy and some other things, but that's what the $14,000 is for. Item D, budget amendment for Swannanoa River enhancements to Veterans Park. This was some grant funding we got from Pigeon River Fund. We got a grant for $28,000. We are chipping in $5,000 to do some engineering and some plans for about 1,600 linear foot of the section of the Swannanoa as it runs through Veterans Park, to be able to be shovel ready for some funding, hopefully in the future, to do some stream bank restoration on the Swannanoa River through Veterans Park. Item E is a budget amendment for an insurance settlement for a police vehicle. We had a small bump up, so this is $8,215. This is going to be paid for through insurance, not going to affect the town's fund balance or our insurance. It would be the person at fault for that one. Item F is a call for public hearing for text amendments to definitions in our land use code, bed and breakfast, homes and inns. This is an amendment that has been applied for by an individual in the community, asking for some changes to some numbers in our definition section of our land use code for bed and breakfast, homes and inns. Item G is a resolution to authorize the mayor, myself, and the finance director to sign payroll and accounts payable checks. And that'll be your consent agenda.
Do I have a motion? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, citizen comments on new business. Lisa? That'll be you want to wait till? Yep. Okay, we'll do that. All right, unfinished business, none. New business, section of accounting firm to conduct FY19 audit. Josh, if you will.
Sure. So for the past 7 years, we've used Good Killian to do our annual audits for us. We did receive 3 proposals this time around, one from Good Killian, one from Martin & Starnes, and one from Malden Jenkins. Good Killian came in for the next fiscal year at $27,350, Martin & Starnes $24,000, and Good Killian at $21,000. Myself and the finance director would like to propose us to use Malden Jenkins for this this year's audit firm. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia. They've also given us prices for the next 2 years, $21,500 and $22,500 for year 2 and 3. This firm is newer to North Carolina. They've just moved in a couple years ago. They've got about 10 or so communities they're doing. Orange County is one, New Bern is another one. So they're trying to get their foot in the door in North Carolina.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
The only thing I would point out is that it's not, obviously the cost of the audit is significant, but it's a healthy thing to rotate around every now and then. Goupillion has been doing this is not about being displeased with their services, but they've been doing the audit for some time.
7 years.
Yeah. So it's probably appropriate to rotate, and so I would speak in favor of it.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, property inquiry, 206 Sutton Avenue. Josh?
So I don't know if Mr. Dennis Harvey is here. He is here. Okay, he's here, so he can answer some questions if you have any. This is property at 206 Sutton Avenue, a little landscaped area that does adjoin this building. Our beautification committee does take care of this portion of town property. It's around 15 feet or so in width and about 50 foot roughly in length. Currently it's part of that parking lot, the town-owned parking lot there at 206 Sutton, and Mr. Harvey had inquired through me if the town board would have any interest in disposing of that property. I did make him aware that we've got to follow a process to do that if he is in fact interested, and the board is also interested, but I will let him answer some questions if you have some from him, or I'll be happy to answer some.
Any questions?
Well, I wouldn't mind, what the motivation is for wanting the town to sell the property.
Well, for now, just to be able to purchase it, but I think going down the road in the future, it's adjacent to my building, and I think it could enhance that rental property down there. Plus, I think, put some chairs and tables out there, and make it a little bit more conducive to visitors. It's actually 13 by 70. I measured it today, so I don't think it's buildable as far as a structure goes. But I would do something like chairs and tables on it and maintain
I would say I'd just offer my opinion about it, and this is mine alone, not the whole board's. But I think there's always a reservation about selling a piece of public property, and it's not ours, it's the town. But I would want to add, I think in the agenda meeting that there was some concern maybe with the tree sometimes getting a little bit too big, and I
usually end up pruning those.
But we can, it's town property, so reach out and we'd want to be sensitive to that and so forth. But personally, for me, I'm probably inclined not to want to sell the piece of property. It sets a precedent for other similar things and so forth, but we do want to be sensitive to your needs as far as maintaining it.
So another thing would be, if in the future I wanted to put windows on that side of the building. If you know the building, it's just a whole big, huge blank wall. So in order for me to put any windows in there or a door, apparently there's a state statute that says I can't do that because the city owns that, and I'd have to get some type of a variance. I checked a couple of years ago. That's what I was told at that time. So I'd have to apply for a variance. Apparently it's a state law. So that's another reason why I would want that property.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you coming. And that's just my 2 cents worth. It's just, you're kind enough to come and speak to us, so
sure,
give you some idea of at least what
Thank you.
my thoughts are anyway. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I piggyback what Larry just said. I think that when you start getting in the habit of separating town property like that, it does open up some doors. I think that's a good area where we can still develop it. I mean, like I said, putting in picnic tables or whatever. And one thing I look at too is the liability factor. that if you had that property and somebody was on there and someone got hurt, blah, 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 you know, then you're liable for it. Right now, if somebody did it, we're liable for it. But, you know, it's kind of a hot little area. That's where the Sourwood Festival, that's where they have their little, you know, sourwood, whatever you call it, contest. And a lot of people usually utilize that space. By being public property, it's there, it's open to anyone. When I think you start making things private, that's when you get in the habit of saying, well, nope, you can't be here after 6 o'clock. Nope, you can't do this. Nope, you can't do that. Whereas that still fall up under the town, and we still have the jurisdiction for it. So I would be with Larry, I would vote against it.
Well, it's just something that the Beautification Committee has taken care of, done an extremely good job, and I would hate to give that little section up, but that's, I don't have a vote in this, but I'm calling for a motion.
Motion for what?
Calling for a motion as to whether to go forward with the purchase request, or to have it surveyed, or what's the opinion of the board?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, if the town should conclude that they want to sell the property, have an interest in selling the property, the first thing, probably you're just asking not for a motion to do anything, but for a vote of the board to see if they're interested in selling it. If there is an interest, then the process is this board has to declare it surplus, and then it's auctioned, essentially. That's kind of simplified version of the sale, if that's what happens. But I think there's no proposed motion before you, so I think the best thing is to call for a vote on whether the board's even interested in entertaining possibility of sale.
And if we're not, we just don't want to make the motion.
Correct. All right, do I have a motion? Hearing none, move on to C. Josh?
So item C in our new business is 2019 local government general records and retention and disposition schedule. Department of Cultural and Natural Resources has adopted a new schedule for how we keep and disperse of our records, and it's typically standard practice for us to follow suit with what they've adopted on that. So that'll define how long we keep records, when we dispose of them, and such.
Do I have any discussion? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Who's 5-0? All right. Number D, I-40 Blue Ridge Road interchange design. We've got some good folks from the state that are here, and they'll come and give us a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Collins and Alderman. We appreciate the opportunity to come here. Let me grab a corner. Do that PowerPoint. Well, we thank you for the opportunity to come here this evening to speak with you about the Blue Ridge Road Interchange project. I want to share some updates on the project. I want to share information we have received since our public meeting we had in December on that project, some of the results, the comments we received from that public meeting. And then we want to ask you to consider providing an official position from the town on which alternate the town prefers for our consideration as we move forward as well. So on the first slide here, you'll see we have information that goes to the detail of the public meeting. And we had 33 written comments that were supplied after the public hearing we had here. That was December 13th. Of those, 42% of the people who responded favored alternate number 2. And we've got the alternates here. We'll review again here in just a moment. So 42% favored alternate 2, 21% favored alternate 3, 36% just gave various comments in favor of sidewalks, construction concerns, property impacts, that sort of thing. And then 39% expressed support for bike and ped. I'm going to go ahead and go to the slides. we've got a little bit larger view here. This is alternate 1 that was presented at the public meeting. As you'll see on that, the basic layout is what we call kind of a semi roundabout on the southern side of I-40. You cannot make a full movement. You can make a movement around the side into the 2 ramps. On the north is actually what's kind of commonly referred to as a peanut. You've got a partial roundabout connected to another partial roundabout. And in the road there to the top right beside the red building, does this have a pointer? And it connects back to the park there, to Veterans Park. And this one does have some impacts there at that location. And all 3 alternates have a road that continues to US 70 that replaces the bridge, excuse me, the bridge over the river in that location.
While you're on
Yes, sir.
this particular alternative, I understand you're comfortable with all 3 alternatives, so they're fine, they meet your approvals.
That's correct.
But does this one, in an engineer's mind, is it a little more complicated to get into Veterans Park, or are you fairly satisfied with all 3 alternatives about the access to Veterans Park?
We are. We're fairly satisfied with access from all 3 alternates to Veterans Park and to the other properties. There can be some minor tweaks as the project's developed further, and each one has a little bit of a slight difference as far as pros and cons. This one functions well. It does keep the movement into the proposed development a little further north, and it also keeps the traffic from I-40 a little further separated from the entrance to Veterans Park. Gives you a little more separation in storage there. Excuse me. Alternate 2, which was the one that was favored by 42% of those who actually voted on this. This one has 2 roundabouts. These are full movement roundabouts, meaning you could just go in circles all day long if you wanted to at each side. We hope you wouldn't do that. But on the south side, it's basically the same layout as alternate 1, with that exception that you can make a full circular movement. On the north side, you can see the roundabout's larger. It's also pulled in a little bit closer to I-40. It does provide access to all the properties just as the alternate 1 did. It has a less impact currently on the commercial facility there on the right adjacent to Veterans Park. And keep in mind too that all 3 of these alternates are preliminary plans. So as we go forward with the final design, whichever alternate is selected, we always kind of look at that to see how we can minimize the impacts at that point. But there will be some tweaks and changes from what you see here, although minor. Any questions on alternate 2?
Any idea on how many homes are going to be affected by putting that in, lower roundabout?
About 7. We figure it's about 7 on each of these, and that was the benefit too to having the roundabout design and having that pulled in like it is. It's actually less impact than what was previously shown several years ago with the cloverleaf type design. Greatly minimize that.
But alternative 2 doesn't take the piece of commercial property. Is that correct or not correct?
It'll have some impact. There is some right-of-way impacts on the corners of the property. It doesn't appear to be a total take, but there would be some impacts possibly to the drive configurations and that sort of thing.
Because it was my understanding a bit, I know it's not an overwhelming number of number of public comments one way or the other, but that was could have had some influence in alternative 2 having a little more interest from the public than the other 2 alternatives.
It did. So in our summarization of alternate 2, the comments we received did cite less impacts, and they were specifically looking at that general area. And they also commented about it being a little bit more navigable, that people felt like they could get through this layout better than the other 2 layouts.
Those impacts could change depending on some of the properties.
So as far as the piece of commercial property, that could vary. It's not set in stone at this point.
That's correct. So we still have hydraulic design, utility design, those sort of things that can still impact the property. This one has a better likelihood that it won't be impacted. Any other questions on that?
That's the little dog leg you have down there at the bottom.
Yes.
Explain that to me.
Okay, so that dog leg that's down there on the bottom right-hand side is an access road that provides access to some of the residential properties in there. If you're familiar with the area, there's a drive that's really close up to I-40 now that'll be cut off by the roundabout, as you can't have a driveway coming directly off of that roundabout at that location. So this is a reconnection to provide those properties access to the individual homes. And we're working with the property owners too. There's a couple of potential other layouts that we could do there. So we're flexible in that layout. The goal is just to provide them access back in a way that they're agreeable with as well. Alternate 3. This one got 21%. It should be noted that the 21% that voted for that, that was actually 7 people since we had 33. It works out to 7 people. 3 of those noted number 2 as their second choice. So they were still in favor of number 2. This one, the primary difference is you go back to having what we call the partial roundabouts at each side there at the ramps at I-40. And further north, you have a full roundabout. It does provide more separation from I-40, more what we call stacking or queuing distance, more room for cars to get away from that I-40 interchange to get into those properties. But as you can see from that, it does have more impact to the commercial property there on the right. Any questions on alternative number 3?
Just an observation, within the last 2 weeks, I've almost been hit about 4 times here in Black Mountain going on straightaways. So you're trying to put in roundabouts for people to learn how to go around a roundabout too?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So studies have shown that with roundabouts, they do improve safety, because what you encounter is, rather than have a T-type intersection where you have a T-bone type collision, if you have a collision, it's more of a glancing blow type intersection, and as well, the speed limits, they're designed at a lower speed, 20 to 25 miles an hour is what they're designed for.
So you're looking for the direction of the board, if there's a consensus on the board for a particular design, and then you'll take that back into consideration and so forth as you work through your final decision.
That's correct. That's correct. And I want to give a couple of additional updates on the project. The schedule on the project was go to construction in fiscal year 2021. Our draft STIP, State Transportation Improvement Program, that draft STIP is out for public comment at this time. That's to be voted on by the Board of Transportation this summer. In that draft STIP, this project has been pushed out 1 fiscal year to 2022. Many of our projects throughout the state were pushed out, increasing construction costs and kind of balancing the funding of that program has pushed those out. And keep in mind, that doesn't necessarily mean to be pushed out 12 months. That's a fiscal year. So if it was scheduled early in 1 fiscal year, or late in 1 fiscal year, you can bump it to early the next fiscal year. So it's kind of a budgeting process. So we're now looking at 2022. And so the plan is to move forward with our decision and determination of alternates here within the next month. Then go ahead and have our design team move forward with final design, and so we can get to the right-of-way stage later this year.
Is the bridge over the river going to be replaced?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess for my comment to the rest of the board, it's significant to me that the public lean toward alternative 2, and so, I don't have, personally, don't have any, any reason to not align with what the public seems to want there. So that's the direction I would go in because of that. Noting that all 3 of them are acceptable, you brought them forth and are comfortable with all of them, and any of them that you pick, you still are going to have some additional design, when you get down to the fine point of it. So I would, as a matter of fact, I'll just make a motion to endorse alternative number 2 for the reason that the public supported it, and that'll allow us to move forward. And if somebody else has something else in mind, I'm certainly open to it, but that at least I would advance that in the form of a motion.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Well, just before we vote on our motion, one of the items that received attention at the public meeting, and then you were kind enough to get us the information, was about some of the sidewalk and pedestrian improvements that could be included in the project. Can you speak a little bit about that for people tonight as well?
Yes, be glad to. So in the state of North Carolina, the way sidewalks are included on projects, the sidewalks are would actually become a facility of the town or the local municipality. So DOT actually does not install or maintain, I should say maintain sidewalks on projects. We will replace existing sidewalk. If there's existing sidewalk, we'll replace it at 100% our cost as part of the project. If we're in a project such as this and the municipality has a desire for sidewalk, we can do a partnership with that town. And the funding is based upon the population of the town. And here in Black Mountain, that population works out to where we do an 80-20 match. Meaning DOT will pay 80% of it, the town's responsible for 20%. So we needed a determination from the town at some point in time as we move forward design, if that's something you'd like to see included as well. And our preliminary estimates are based on alternate 1. That's not to say that's our preferred alternate, that's just one of the ones that we use because the layouts are so very similar. And that puts the funding somewhere in the range of $28,000 to $30,000 for the town's portion for sidewalk. And what we would do to proceed with that, we would enter what they call a municipal agreement, which would spell out those terms, and then we would have that included in our design for the project. If it's not included in the design, we can still build it so that we have shoulder width to accommodate sidewalk in the future should the town decide to do that at a later date.
So you look for a commitment on the town when you have the design finalized?
We can do that at any point in the process. The sooner the better, really.
Yeah, I think that with this project, I mean, it's an opportunity that we as a community should not pass on in expanding our sidewalk and pedestrian alternatives.
It's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, if we've got the state paying for 80% of the sidewalk and we can get additional sidewalk put here in town, that's what we ought to do.
Looking at your map, when you cross the river there and you go across Blue Ridge, you're going up Blue Ridge Road towards Highway 70.
Yes, sir.
Now, looking at your roundabouts and stuff here, that's probably where the delivery trucks are going to be going to. They're going to be getting off at that interchange. They're going to cross over that bridge at the river. They're going to come to that stoplight. What improvements are going to be done at that stoplight?
Correct me if I'm not mistaken. That's a 3-lane section at the. So we're changing the bridge, replacing the bridge, and then it'll be 3 lanes from that last roundabout north to US 7.
So you'll have a dedicated left turn lane.
Correct.
Cool.
And that's with all 3 alternatives.
That's with all
alternatives.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Any more discussion? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I vote. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Josh, number E.
All right, so item E, this is a budget amendment for contract services. $10,000 is currently in professional services and is being requested to remove the, let me rephrase that, start over 1 second. $10,000 is in part-time salaries we are requesting to move to professional services. The intent of this money was to provide Dan with some help to do building inspections. Dan, I'm not saying he's retiring, but he's getting up there, and it probably will be in the future.
So our intent with that money was to hire someone to help Dan and to learn from Dan, kind of how building inspections are done, at least here in Black Mountain, and for him to show him the ropes. I think the $10,000 proved to be difficult to find someone to do the work with. Speaking with Jessica, she had asked for a little more money, I think, in the budget, and it may have gotten cut out before it was seen by the board last year. But the reason we were asking to move it to professional service was we found it hard to find someone to be part-time for $10,000. We wanted to be to use the $10,000 for to do some code enforcement in the same department, just doing something different. And we'd like to go forward and this next upcoming budget, try to budget some more money to get Dan a part-time position for help. Is our intent with that. So the code enforcement person is, there are a handful of companies that do this type of stuff. Benchmark Planning is one I've used in the past in different areas. They're out of Charlotte. They do anything from, pretty much anything they can enforce in the town code, from junk cars to tall grass. They can do signs. They can do some zoning. They can do all types of code enforcement. Probably could do something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the meeting when we talk about graffiti. It could be a possibility. But typically that person would not be doing building inspections. It's not something that they're trained in doing, working through one of those code enforcement agencies. That's where we are with that.
Well, I mean, my question in moving it to this was, this is just a limited contract, if I'm reading the agreement correct, from April 1st to June 30th of this year. Are we departmentally in a position where this is an absolute necessity right now, or is this, I mean, I don't want us just to spend money because it's allocated in this year's budget and we're running out of time on this fiscal year. If this is a systemic problem, like we've talked about, and finding someone for Dan, then, I mean, in a month we're going to have a budget meeting. I think that, you know, let's really talk about upping that sum to get someone in there.
I mean, to be honest, I think we can get by without transferring it to professional services. I don't think that. I mean, it's not something that we are struggling to keep up with. I think it would help, but it's not something that we absolutely, if we don't have, we can't function.
Yeah, and I think you expressed it well to start with in your introduction. In my conversations, it's always been the thought process to have that kind of succession planning and learning the ropes from the individual that's here. And this contract, as presented, while I have nothing against Benchmark Services or the work that they do, I don't think that it gets us towards that goal. And ultimately, I don't know at this point in the year if it's really necessary for us.
I mean, typically this time of year we usually get pretty busy with your tall grass.
Sure.
That's usually the busiest time of year for that type of code enforcement.
Right.
And I think that was some of the thought process behind moving that.
Any other discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the budget amendment as submitted?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1. All right, Josh, Black Mountain Avenue sidewalk.
All right, I'm passing down for you a couple maps with some options we talked about at the agenda meeting. So you'll have one map with a sidewalk on it. It'll be in blue. And when you get it, I'll give you a second to get it. You'll have the other map that'll have, this is just what's been talked about for the greenway alignment on that Black Mountain Avenue, and that's in green. You'll notice there's a difference of alignments, which, a 10-foot wide greenway is not going to fit along the roadway there very easily. So I think the thought process behind that was to take it back behind a couple of those businesses off of Terry Estates and up to Vance Avenue there. As we talked about in the agenda meeting, the costs for each one, if you include the match for the greenway, is around $60,000 for the match for the greenway. The cost for the sidewalk is between $51,000 and $61,000. So they're really close in cost estimates. I think this is just an option for discussion. If the board is comfortable going with the sidewalk option, I do think we can do that much faster than we can the greenway option. The greenway option, going through federal funding, just takes time. You've got to complete certain steps before you can go on to the next stage, and that's just I think unfortunately for anyone that's in a hurry, that's just the problem with that type of funding. But the sidewalk option, I think, if that is the wishes of the board, that could be done, as soon as money can be allocated for it and get it on the ground. So those are the two options that you've got. I'll be happy to answer some questions for you on either one. And like I said, these are just estimates, so I don't know exact numbers, but this should be pretty close.
So doing the sidewalk option, you're going to be on the side that's less invasive than the citizens. You're going to be looking at the car lot. You're going to be looking at, what is that, Louise's Kitchen, the car wash, and what have you. If you're coming up from the river, so to speak, and you're walking towards town.
Correct.
You've got the Black Mountain Stove.
Correct.
the car lot. And what is the Sending Fitness? Is that it? Right next to that. Then the car wash. And then you will be linking in basically the sidewalk up at Louisa's Kitchen.
That's correct.
Okay. So what I mean by being less invasive, you got more space there to do it now than you would on the other side.
And I will say, you know, on that side, on the east side of Black Mountain Avenue, that is where the sidewalk section is on that current bridge.
Oh, that's it. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, personally, I'm in favor of the sidewalk. It should tie in, and I think it's important for us. We have new hotel, and then we're still going to have the greenway tying in down there at the hotel. But I think even visually, the sidewalk, you know, has, besides being quicker to get there, to get it done, I think you'd have to set that aside and say, you know, I mean, we all would like to have it. But if it were really better to wait on the greenway, then I think we should. I just don't see a compelling reason to do that. And I gather you wouldn't be recommending it or giving us the option. So I'm speaking in favor of going to the sidewalk and getting it done as soon as we practically can get it done.
Yeah, just speaking with Jessica, the planning director, and Jamie on it, to me, the greenway's still going to be coming through there, and we're still going to be connecting all the, within the Oaks. That's not changing. It just, to me, you've got sidewalk currently on the, up on farther up on Black Mountain Avenue in front of Louisa's. It just makes sense to kind of continue sidewalk.
I agree. Do you need any direction from the board tonight besides that direction?
I don't think so.
Because you haven't really, you need to identify the cost a little more specifically.
And then we'll bring you something that's more concrete.
Yeah. No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended.
All right. Any other comments? Questions? I think you've got your direction, Josh.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. I'm assuming that the Cheshire lighting contract will be something that we need to hear from Ron on.
Yes.
Yeah, the ink's still wet on that one. I hope it's reached all of you. Drafted over the weekend a lighting agreement with Cheshire that tried to take us back to 2002 and get the agreement to fit with their lighting policy. I think this board's direction from the agenda meeting was we're interested in assisting with the lighting in Cheshire only to the extent we would be paying for lighting if we put the lighting in Cheshire. I tried to write an agreement that will provide that you will pay for the, this will sound a little weird if you're not familiar with it, but we'll pay for the pole and the electricity for the number of poles at the price that we pay and that we would put in if we put in all the lights in Cheshire and build them within our policy. That policy sets out that we will have basically a light per intersection, and every 600 feet, if a block's longer than 600 feet, the board has a little, or the town has a little flexibility where to place a light, so you have a street light. The town pays the electricity for lights. The town, I had to check with Dean on this, the old agreement said for whatever we rent lights from CP&L from, we don't rent lights, but we do pay them a pole charge for any place we ask to have a light pole if they don't already have a pole. Dean says right now that's approximately $2 per month on our bill. So the agreement as written would be that we would basically inventory Cheshire, count the number of lights that we would put in if it was up to us, and pay Cheshire the electric bill based on our average per light, not on whatever bulb they're using, but our average light, which we hope went down when we went to LEDs. And for each pole that we would have placed, we will pay them that $2. And every pole, if we went into Cheshire and we put in street lights, every light would require a pole, because I think all their utilities are underground. There are no pre-existing poles we can hang lights on. For that reason, I wrote the agreement as it stated. And I hope I wrote, so it says what I just said, that we will pay no more to reimburse the association than we would be paying for those lights if we install them ourselves, and install no more than our policy sets out.
Basically, what that says is we're not doing anything more for them than we do the rest of the town.
That's correct. Once we exceed that, then it becomes a private mall.
So, you're comfortable with us voting on this tonight?
I am, and like I said, the ink's still wet. I hope you've read it, but it's written so that we don't pay a penny more to Cheshire. And set up a little different. The old agreement said they'd send us a bill every month. This one doesn't. We do the calculations and they simply get the reimbursement on a monthly basis.
Do I have a motion to approve the Cheshire lighting contract from the town's point of view?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Ron. All right, Josh, the employee water benefit.
All right, here, take one of those and pass it down, please. Love when you give out paper. So as you get this coming to you, some emails that were exchanged back and forth between myself and school government. And so I'll give you a second to read that, but I'll go ahead and just start reading something that I've drafted here. So I accepted appointment as town manager of the town of Black Mountain as defined in North Carolina General Statutes 168, 148 in October of last year. In addition to upholding the laws of the state of North Carolina and the charter and ordinances of the town of Black Mountain, I'm tasked with ensuring services are provided in an efficient, equitable, and ethical manner. Since my appointment, I've become aware of instances where the town could be operating outside of its authority and have taken measures to correct errors to protect the town and reduce liability. After attending the North Carolina City and County Managers Association Winter Conference in February and speaking with fellow colleagues regarding general employee benefits, I decided to research the employee free water benefit to ensure compliance with the fund structure and the state law. I reached out to the UNC School of Government for direction regarding free water and the legalities of providing it within the enterprise fund. I provided you with 2 emails regarding fees and water usage. So what I found was there was no official policy in place indicating authority being given by the Board of Aldermen to give this benefit to the employees. We have about 80 full-time employees. 16 of these were receiving free water in town. 1 non-employee was receiving free water in town. In order to provide this benefit equitably and within our authority, I do have a proposition that would provide the same benefit to all full-time employees. This would be a pay increase of approximately $321. This would be before deductions to their annual salary. This would be $25,738 in expenditure for the general fund. This would end up being 0.6% increase in pay for full-time employees. And I'll say the average water bill for the free water users that were documented was around $21 a month.
And those employees were paying the MSD fees.
That's correct.
It was just the water fee. So, thank you, Josh.
Do you have any idea how long? Has this just been a policy that?
I wouldn't. I really
I don't know. Does anybody know?
At least 40 years.
Yeah,
40?
if not. Oh, absolutely.
Probably
probably
longer
has.
since the
Yeah.
50s.
Well, times have changed.
They have.
They really have. And
Even that, my question would be, who was the last, or when was the last employee that this was offered to? How long ago?
Probably me.
You?
That's how you found out about it.
Oh, got your attention, didn't it?
Probably me.
Prior to you.
So, Josh, when did you make the employees aware that we're having this?
I can't remember the date of that letter I sent out, Alderman Stone. I don't recall the date of it.
Well, I'm not the letter that informed the discontinuance of the service, but as you just spoke to, the augmentation in the pay. When were they made aware?
They have not been notified.
They have not been.
No,
Okay.
that was just
He
for
can't
tonight.
do that on his own. He has to get that approved by the board.
That was for tonight.
Well, that's why I'm glad that it's on here, because that's, and just seeing the letter that was sent out, certainly that raised concerns of individuals, because that is, of course, money out of their pocket by the taking of that benefit. And certainly that's not, I certainly know it's not your intent. It's not our intent as a board to not value their service and honor what we've committed to do to them.
So I'm glad that you included that part about how we're going to make them whole through that compensation. And I appreciate you stating that first tonight, because that was my biggest concern in seeing that letter. Because, you know, as you said, it's a small number of employees, 16 out of 80. And, you know, all of our employees do a fantastic job, but certainly, I mean, as all you know that are in the audience, it's not the cheapest place to live. There are concerns with it. We certainly don't pay the most in the county or out of the municipalities. And certainly protecting what they make and the lifestyle they're accustomed to is important to me, and I would say that it's important to everyone on this board.
The bottom line on it is what you're proposing makes it fair across the board. It was great that the town employees were getting, that lived in the city limits, got free water. It was illegal. It shouldn't have been ever been done. But what you're proposing makes all the employees get the same benefit. So the ones that are losing their water aren't losing anything because they're still going to get the same amount of money. But the ones who couldn't get that benefit because they don't live here in the town, they're going to be compensated as well.
And it's done appropriately. So, very good. So you do need a motion to that extent. It's a pay increase of $321.
That's before deduction. Yeah, so I don't know. We probably need to do maybe a budget amendment at the next meeting.
You know, you want to get a little more to the fine point?
Yep.
Okay.
So with that being the case, if we're going to do it at the next meeting, their existing benefit will carry over past that April 1st date, because we won't meet before April 1st. Because
if that's how y'all like to proceed, that's
yeah,
fine.
I think that we need to continue as is until we have the alternative voted on.
I don't know how you can continue doing something you know that the Institute of Government says is illegal and that we're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, we don't have the money, and as an amendment tonight on here, I mean, we can give Josh direction.
So we lose, basically the employees lose 1 month.
We've been, yes, I don't care if they lose a nickel. I don't want them to lose anything.
Well, Ryan, we don't either. It's not legal.
But we've been in non-compliance for over 4 years.
But we know now.
We do know now. And we're asking for...
We know now.
Well, then you may vote for it, and I will vote against it.
That'd be great. But we know now, and you know, we're not supposed to be doing that. So, you know, it just sets a bad precedence to say, you know, we know it's wrong.
We know it's wrong.
We know it's
we're going to take
inappropriate.
3 weeks
we
to
know
find an
we're,
answer.
We know and it's $20, $21, and that is a lot to some of our employees. But it's wrong. We shouldn't be doing it.
And I think the right thing to do at this point in time is just say, no, that's it, to get a water bill just like everybody else do. The ones who are getting free water. I mean, I look at fair as fair and everything, but, you know, somebody for 40 years have been doing this, and we've had no idea they've been doing it. And now it's finally brought to our attention. I mean, I'm even kind of against even giving the extra money. Let's just hold everyone accountable, bring them back in line. Sure, they may have lost out some, but now that we know, you know, and I agree that we can't allow it to continue to happen after we know that it's illegal.
My biggest, I understand what you're saying, Carlos. My biggest thing is the ones that we're getting the shaft. They weren't living in the town, so they were penalized because they couldn't get free water in Marion or Hendersonville or wherever they live. And by doing it, increasing it across the board, the folks who were getting the free water aren't losing anything once we make this into effect. And we're benefiting the ones that were empty-handed, which is like 80% of the employees, 70% at least. So I think we just need someone to make a motion.
We don't have the motion. He's going to come back to us.
All right.
Some advice to put in here too?
April 25th. I was over here with Josh fishing for a budget meeting that might be sooner than your next regular meeting. If this is of such concern on both sides, I agree, once we know it's illegal, probably not smart to proceed, but at the same time, I understand Ryan's position, you want to jerk the rug out from underneath if it's for a month. Is there any potential for a special call meeting to address this?
Why don't, when Josh has it ready, notify us and we'll get together as soon as we can.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, we can have it ready this week.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I just want to say to Josh, thank you for your leadership on this, Josh. Thank you for taking a stand that you're not going to do anything that is wrong or what we shouldn't be doing. We're not going to be giving free meter hookups to people in this town just because they were being difficult. We're not going to be asking for things that you can't do for one that you can't do for all. And people asking for free building permit fees because they think that they're adding so much to the town by doing that. The one thing I knew about you when you were here before, Josh, is that you won't do something wrong if you know it's wrong, and I appreciate you for that. All right. Mr. Mayor. Yes, sir.
Josh, I would like to know, and it doesn't have to have any kind of identifying factor to it as to the employee, but I would like to know how long it's been going on, when those employees started work. No names, no identifier. Okay.
I can get that information.
The days of the free water taps and free working on people's private property for folks on this board is over. All right. On to our public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask for a 5-minute recess before we do that?
We'll have a recess for 5 minutes. Call the meeting to order, please. All right. Our public hearing, we're calling for public text amendment to add the graffiti ordinance. And I'd like to have a motion to open the public hearing. 019-05.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, citizen comments. You want to present first?
Please.
Yes.
Yep, okay.
So despite the length of this ordinance, it's pretty straightforward. Our goal here is to provide some accountability and responsibility both to perpetrators who perform graffiti in our town, and fortunately we have seen some of that cropping up, and it seems to multiply, as well as some responsibility to the property owners to remediate that graffiti that occurs. So if you flip through the ordinance, it has a standard structure where we have the purpose and the definitions established. And then it discusses that graffiti is prohibited, and then that removal is required. When we talk about removal by the owner, I want to note some things that we try to do to be considerate, that we do respect that the person who's being asked to remove the graffiti has also been a victim of having the graffiti, and we're very sensitive to that. So if you had received graffiti on your property, you would receive a notice of removal or a notice of defacement, and within 10 days, hopefully you have it removed, but if you don't, if you could produce information that you are on somebody's roster for the painter to come by, we'll consider that sufficient enough that you are going to take care of this, and we'll follow up with you. When we were drafting this, I joked I can't get a hair appointment in 2 weeks, let alone necessarily get professional services to my house. So we wanted to be cognizant of that. And the information that goes out to the individual will be standard fare about where the location is and the address, but will also include any information we have about services people can use to help mitigate those personal costs. And one of the things that, and we'll discuss that in a moment as well. If it is not removed properly and within the time frame, it can be removed by the town, and those costs incurred will be a lien against the property. And then we move on to the enforcement and remedies. Obviously, committing graffiti is a criminal issue, but there's also civil penalties that can be included in this ordinance. And they begin at $250. The first is $200, the second is $250, the third is $500, the fourth is $750, and the fifth and any subsequent violation within a 12-month period is $1,000. If the perpetrator removes the graffiti on the first or second offense, this fee is not used. We'll appreciate that you have removed it. Civil penalties against the property owner if they do not properly remove it are much less significant and are $10 per day. And the funds, if you at the very end of the ordinance, you can see there's a trust fund idea, which I think is a real service to the community. That is the Anti-Graffiti Trust Fund, and civil penalties assessed and collected from perpetrators and property owners shall be placed in this fund, along with any monetary donations received. The Board of Aldermen shall direct expenditures of the monies of this fund, and the expenditure shall be limited for the payment of the cost of a graffiti removal from public property or an advance payment for removal of graffiti from private property pending reimbursement by the perpetrator or the owner of private property. So I think we've made a real effort to accommodate and be respectful of individuals who are coping with this on their own, and these procedures are fairly standard in practice in many places across North Carolina.
So if a person does graffiti,
I just said ask her to stay here because we'll have some questions, I'm sure.
yeah, if a person does the graffiti and he's caught, he's going to be charged with misdemeanor in accordance to whatever GS it is, and he's going to be required to clean the graffiti off. And if he doesn't clean it off,
we may not know who it is.
I mean, but if he's caught,
Yes.
if he's caught, he would have a misdemeanor charge, and he would be required to clean it up. And if he didn't clean it up, there's civil penalties in conjunction with the misdemeanor. Okay.
That's one thing where I've got a little heartburn about, is because if you have somebody that's gone and they've vandalized somebody's building, and me as an owner, I'm not so sure I want that son gun back on my property. I'd rather him pay the fine, give me the money to fix it.
And I don't know if they're required to clean up. I think the opportunity is there. Is that how it's an opportunity?
And when you get into the civil penalties, I have another comment later. But I have to agree with the mayor. If I've got somebody who just has a great blast going out painting everybody's house every night, I don't think I need him back cleaning it either. But what percentage of this is done by the first timer? His buddy did, so I'm going to do it, but I got caught. Small community, we're going to know these kids. But I don't know if I'm as harsh as the mayor, but I think you want that opportunity left in your ordinance.
Should that opportunity, though, have the owner's permission first?
Yeah, we can. Are you taking notes, Ron?
We could do that. In 20-375A2, I can add a provision in there that shall be prohibited if the perpetrator removes the graffiti with the property owner's consent.
I do think that was the intent, but yeah, it's not going to hurt to spell it
spells
out.
it out this way.
Absolutely.
I may add something. We would also ask for restitution through the court system to the business owner for any kind of expenditures they would have on the removal of that graffiti if we catch it.
That is if you catch them.
That's correct. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Citizen comments? You're up.
Lisa Milton, 406 West State Street. I am here tonight. I firmly believe that we have to have something in our code that gives the police the ability to catch and prosecute. But we walk a very fine line, because the only way this works is for the many instances where the perpetrator is not caught. The victim has to incur the expense and the effort to restore their property to the condition that it was before this happened. In reading over the proposed text, there's a couple of places where I have some issue with how the text is worded. Under section 20-372, graffiti prohibited, section C, it says, "It shall be the responsibility of the person who places the graffiti on any public or private property, or the parents of the person who places such graffiti on any public or private property, if the perpetrator is a minor, to remove the graffiti." And then you go down to section 20-373, removal required. It said immediate removal. "It is the responsibility of the perpetrator to immediately remove any graffiti created or caused by the perpetrator. But if the perpetrator fails to remove the graffiti, then it becomes the responsibility of the property owner to promptly remove it." Now, if you go over to page 3, section 20-374, right of entry to private property, you address here that prior to entering on private property or property owned by a public entity other than the town for the purposes of graffiti removal, the town shall attempt to secure the consent of the property owner and release of the town from any and all claims arising out of the removal. Without that language in there with respect to the perpetrator coming on your property, you essentially have the potential for the perpetrator to be injured or his parents to be injured in an attempt to remove it. You have the potential for them to sue you. At that point, you have to pay for your defense. Your insurance has the potential to, you have the potential to have your insurance premium increased. The language, I think, has to protect the victim here more so than it does. In this code, the property owner has incurred damage to their property. If you say that the perpetrator can come on the property and fix that damage, depending on what method they use to fix that, they can do more damage to your property. So for that reason alone, I would ask that you remove the option for the perpetrator or his family to remove the damage, and to just say that they will be assessed the cost of that. Then let's see, my next section here was with the, when you go to page 4, section 20-375, enforcement and remedies, civil penalties against the perpetrator. You go down to number 2. The civil penalty shall be forgiven for a first or second violation if the perpetrator removes the graffiti within 15 days after receipt of notice of the violation and imposition of the civil penalty. To me, graffiti is a premeditated act. We don't walk around with spray cans of paint in our pocket and just see a wall and decide we're going to paint on it. They've thought about it. They've made a conscious choice to make that decision. And I'm sorry, our family has property in Asheville that we have lost count of the amount of graffiti that we have painted over and over and over again. So I'm not forgiving at this point. I think that the way that people learn is there has to be a consequence to their action. And when someone can look at it and say, I can do this 2 times and be forgiven, you basically take the teeth out of the code, because there's many kids who won't do it if those penalties stay in place. You also basically don't have that money going into the trust fund to pay for any of the public property's damage that is incurred. And with respect to the definitions, we don't define violation in there. Is violation one letter that they spray paint? So each letter is a violation. Is one color that they put on your building a violation? How many times they touch the building, is that a violation? I think that needs to be clarified so that people do understand just exactly the depth of the code. When you essentially, the police do their job. They arrest, they charge, they write up the paperwork, they have to go to court. By forgiving first and second violations, you basically are making them do a job that they're going to have to do, but then the actions of the perpetrator are forgiven. And I think that if we are to make it very clear that it isn't an accepted action in this town, it has to be strict. It has to be unforgiving. Because in this situation, with graffiti, I don't see the people learning, and I know it's very difficult to catch the perpetrators, and I want to keep our town clean and nice, but I don't want to see victims victimized more. And nowhere in the code does the code forgive the property owner if they don't pay the fine, the daily fine for the cost of not removing it. You forgive the perpetrator, but you don't forgive the victim here. And so I'm just asking to level the field a little bit and yes, be more harsh, because it becomes a better deterrent for the health and the beauty of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, I guess we've got a couple questions. We need to, what constitutes violation?
I don't know. I would, in my mind, and this isn't defined, is any one, whatever it is you paint, no matter how many times you touch the building, no matter how many letters you use, one marking on your building in total is a violation. Yeah. If the board wants to refine that a little bit, if they want me to make it that, they want me to enlarge the violation, we can work on that definition. But it is, Lisa's right, it's undefined. But I don't know if that's a big issue. Ask the chief if he charges somebody with a violation. Is it a matter of counting letters, or do we just have this one blotch on this building we've got to deal with?
Personally, I'm thinking it doesn't matter. That if it's one letter or 20 letters, you're still guilty of breaking the graffiti ordinance. Now, Chief,
Our charge will be damage to personal property as well, so it doesn't matter if it's one paint line or a whole moniker across that wall. It's still damage to property.
And you are going to, through police action, seek damages.
Absolutely. If we're able to catch, we will most definitely seek restitution for the business owner for that damage on the building.
And is that separate from the violation charges?
Yes. The chief is saying that if you painted up my building and I get you arrested and I've got to go clean it up, or I've got to hire somebody to clean it up, the chief is saying what they're going to be asking the court is to find the guy guilty and order him to pay back to me whatever it cost me to clean up the mess he made. That's the restitution. The civil penalty is separate from that.
Are we discussing now, or do we have to wait to discuss?
No,
we're good.
We're good.
Well, I think that Lisa's comments and Don's also make good points, in that you know that's awkward to me, that language about that the perpetrator and the perpetrator's family can come onto somebody's property, and even with consent, it's still uncomfortable because, look, if I had a building and so you get somebody paints graffiti on it, so I've been damaged, and then I'm further put on the spot by having to, if I don't want, I have to, it's a public thing, I have to say, look, I don't want the perpetrator nor their family to come and start trying to clean up my building. And so, furthermore, if you had a business owner that said, I would like to do that, fine, that's a voluntary Yes, they can always do that. They can always say that we want to work with them. But I don't like even making it a matter of consent. I'm uncomfortable with
If you
that.
go back 20-374, it says prior to entering upon private property or property owned by a public entity other than the town shall attempt to secure the consent of the property owner. That is talking about town personnel going on to the private property. Obviously, we wouldn't do it, and there's nothing that says that they have to let us on their property to clean it up, but it doesn't even talk about that. It doesn't even address consent of allowing the perpetrator back on the property. It might need to be addressed, but that section does not. The way I
see.
And probably if a perpetrator was apprehended and brought back to clean the property up, you wouldn't just leave him out there by himself to clean it up. You'd stand there too and make sure he was doing the right thing, doing it right. That somebody was there to supervise him.
And I think that's always going to be a property owner's decision, whether or not to let somebody back on their property to clean it up.
Do you not notify them that they're trespassing when you catch them and charge them for damage to property? Do you notify them not to be back on that location? Isn't that in the magistrate's order?
Not anymore.
Okay.
But the property owner could request that they be charged with trespassing.
We go ahead and make note of that in the report. So when they do, or if they do come back on the property, again, without the owner's consent, then we can charge them for sexual trespass.
Well, I'm wondering if it's the consensus of the board that we ask Ron to do another draft, or Ron, you can give me some guidance on this if you're comfortable with us, amending it such as you remove those references to parents and the perpetrator and parents and so forth.
And I can make some amendments on the fly, and some I have, but you're probably reaching the point where I need even more thought. Because the one we're talking about, and again, we can't forgive the criminal violation. That's not within our power. All we can do is forgive the penalty. And this seems to be rolling back to that single one where you started, that the civil penalty shall be forgiven for first or second violation if the perpetrator removes the graffiti. And I was going to add, with the property owner's consent, and then as we kept talking, I beat that up, which consent the property owner does not have to give. He's under no obligation to let the perpetrator back on his property. I beef up that part. But I don't know, is that...
But even with that, I feel like it puts the property owner in a spot that they don't need to be in, because they can voluntarily reach out if you're of that mind and say, look, you come on in to help me get this thing cleaned up. But if you give them that negative, you have to, you don't have to consent. Well, you put them, I feel like you put them on the spot.
You don't want wording that discourages the consent, I think.
Right.
That will take me more time to write.
Right. Well, I'm actually just kind of not in favor of, within the ordinance, even addressing the whole thing with the perpetrator coming back in and cleaning up. That can be done on a voluntary basis.
Removing the civil penalty forgiveness and just remove that.
Yeah.
A lot of times you may be dealing with kids, but for the most part, they're way old enough to know better.
But again, as I was bringing up, the property owner can make that call.
Right.
We won't encourage it or discourage it.
Right. So are you saying you'd like to go ahead and work on it and come back?
If you want wording that's, we don't throw that baby out with the bathwater, and I probably need to work with it. There are actually a couple of other things looking at the interrelation and probably polish the wording. A lot of this was stolen and could be cleaned up probably to address both your concerns and Lisa's concerns.
Yep.
The one, and where I was going is, and particularly how do you, and I think Jessica addressed it, and I think the ordinance addresses it, or proposed ordinance. If I'm a property owner and I get this notice that we can't find the kid who messed up your house, you need to clean it up. And if I come back to him and say, I've hired a painter, but he can't get here for 3 months,
then I've done my part. I don't have to go out and recruit a bad painter to make this happen. The civil penalty is minimal compared to the perpetrator's $10 a day, and there are a number of steps the property owner can take. So I just wanted to get to that part, if we weren't getting there, because one of the concerns is, and I don't like it either, that sense that we penalize the violator, or the violated, but at the same time, I can understand why you can't just let it go, for reasons we all know, that we want that cleaned up. But I will work on that language to get rid of the forgiveness, tinker with the language, trying to, as much as I can, take the onus off the property owner without leaving us without recourse if graffiti just stays forever.
You know, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but it would be nice, I'm not suggesting you make these changes, but if in the fund, the fund that we have, and the town could put a little money in the fund if they wanted to. If you had an event that happened and you know, it would be, I'm throwing this out for your thoughts, or is this a crazy idea or whatever, but that if there's some funds or the town doesn't have to put funds in it, they just appropriate funds as needed. But to match, so the property owner has damage done, no fault of his own. You know, somebody committed a crime and and messed up his property or her property. So we're saying we want you to clean that up. You know, we can't find the perpetrator, and even if you did, it's got to be cleaned up. Perpetrator probably. I shouldn't say that, but who knows if they could make any headway toward paying anything or not. But if we could match the property owner's cleanup dollar for dollar, to me that's sort of an interesting concept, because we're just joining ourselves to the hip with the property owner. Now we need to have some money in that fund, and so maybe the town has to fund it to start with. But then if it gets if it gets some funds, it gets some. But is that something that you think is plausible and makes sense?
That's a political decision. But it is showing the good faith of the board to not totally penalize the property owner.
Yeah.
That trust fund language was stolen to a degree, and we might want to test drive it, because you might want to revisit that. If this works well enough that things stay cleaned up and you end up with $47 in the trust fund, Dean doesn't want to manage that.
So where do the fines go? To this trust fund?
Yeah, there would be an account set aside, identified as a trust fund. There'll be one more bank account for Dean to go down and open up for the town, and there's really no point in doing that for a small amount of money. If it turns out to be a small amount of money, as we hope it will, then probably want to rewrite that provision. It's just an account that's identified, rather than being a trust fund. I stole that language, and after the fact, it didn't sound like a...
Yeah, that's probably a good thing to work on in your revisions, really. That makes sense.
Continue it.
So if the board wants to see a different version, one thing you can do is continue this without totally adjourning, continue this hearing to date certain, or your next board meeting, and we can just pick up where you left off here. We don't have to renotice it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's do that.
Need a motion to that extent?
Yeah.
I'd make a motion we continue the hearing until the next the April scheduled meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's April 8th.
April 8th. Yeah.
All right, communication from staff. Mr. Sneed?
I've run out.
Okay. Josh?
Two things real quick. Blue Ridge Road, small area planned public input meeting Thursday night, Meadowbrook Free Will Baptist Church on Blue Ridge Road. There'll be two presentations. They'll both be the same, 5:30 and 6:30. When those are. March 14th, this Thursday. And then a reminder that our budget workshop meeting that we talked about in our agenda meeting will be April the 25th at 8:30 in the morning. That's what I had written down.
April 5th?
April 25th.
25th, okay.
And that's all I've
Did I
got.
see that? Did I see 8:30 to 9:30?
I don't think we put an end time on it.
Well, I thought you did, and I thought an
think so.
hour. Oh, I thought, well,
I think it's tea time. That's
I
all I
thought I
have.
could make it.
Are you through, Josh?
Yes, sir.
All right, any communication from the Board of, ladies, please?
The only thing I'd ask, Mr. Mayor, is just a comment that I thought about making earlier, but just to, on the legal fees for our HR expert and so forth, that in no way is inferring any sort of lack of confidence in our town attorney. As a matter of fact, he is involved, he would review the changes to the personnel manual, anything recommended. It's just, it's an area of high specialization, and the board, several months ago, thought it prudent to engage a specialist for that area of work. But just in case there was any thoughts along those lines, I thought it would be worth mentioning that.
Okay. I need a motion to enter into closed session and consult with town attorneys permitted in NCGS 143.318.11A3. All in favor? Aye. Aye.